Hey everybody, Rick Seagraves here with Laketown Podcast with my co-host.
Matthew Willett. And we've got Sam Lepa, the athletic director for Annandale.
Sam, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Just kind of want to have you come in here and, give a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from, what your passions are, what kind of free flow, see what happens.
Yeah, so I'm actually from a small town in northeast Iowa, about 3,200 people. So similar size to Annandale, but a little bit different in the fact of we were kind of the big town around us, where Annandale's, I feel like, fortunate to have the metro close in Buffalo and Monticello and St. Cloud. So there's a lot of cool amenities within 20 minutes. Where I grew up, I always joke with my wife she wouldn't handle it there because our closest Target was like an hour and a half away.
Holy buckets, an hour and a half.
Yeah, so we were kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like it was a big deal to like drive to the town of Decorah where Luther College is and go to Walmart. Like that.
I bet they got a Dollar General now, though.
We do have a Dollar General, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they have the take over the world mentality that they're in every town, everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, we got the Dollar General and a Subway. So that's about what we had. Kind of a cool point that people might know my town from is it's where the Featherlight Trailers manufacturing is.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my dad's worked there for 43 years and kind of just a small town place.
43 years of one job is a minute.
Yeah. So he's actually retiring next spring and he's employee number 7.
7.
Yeah. So
Trivia fact, don't know the answer. Employee number 7 of what? How many?
well, I think in the heyday they were up around 1,500 employees.
Holy buckets.
So yeah, he was there right at the beginning.
Is he running the place?
No, he's in charge of purchasing everything though. So like everything from little
Yeah.
screws all the way through the doors and aluminum and yeah, kind of cool. So that's kind of the
That's
mindset
pretty-
I bring to things. He like started sweeping the floors like right out of high school, like and kind of just learned and built his way up. So no
his-
college education, just
His name is?
Craig.
Craig. Well, congratulations, Craig Lepa, for being in your company for almost as long as I've been alive
Yeah.
and being able to retire from it.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, my stepdad is the same way. Like he's been in the same co-op for, going on 30, 40 years. So that's just kind of the upbringing I could bring to this is just, man, you just work and you work your way up and you learn your way. And
Yeah, you are here. We'll get into how, why, and all that fun stuff. But you were in your first year, so starting fresh in a position at a new school. And what have you enjoyed the most thus far?
I think it's all wrapped up just being here and being in the community. And you see people at church and in the ice cream shop. And, we came out for the 4th of July celebration and the little kid parade. And that's just stuff that it's not as prevalent in the metro. Like it's just so big there and there's so much to do that you don't see the same people and everyone's kind of goes their different ways. So it's really cool to come and, we'll go to the ice cream shop and I'll see a teacher or I'll see a parent or a current athlete, someone that I already know. The fact of I already know most of the teachers within both of the other buildings, where coming from a place like Wayzata where there's 350 just high school staff.
Wow.
I spent 5+ years there coaching 3 sports and I probably knew half of just the high school staff.
And what sports did you coach?
Football, wrestling, and golf. Yep.
And so you came from Wayzata before this. Was there? Where did you get your start with athletic director?
So this is my first athletic director role. I was a teacher and a coach there. Worked a lot with site supervision and running events. Kind of knowing that this is the route I wanted to go someday.
Yeah.
My first teaching job was actually at Centennial High School over in Lino Lakes. So taught there for a couple years. We failed 3 referendums. Moved over to Anoka High School and then to Wayzata.
What did you teach?
Always social studies. Yep, always high school social studies. And I actually used to coach baseball. That's probably what I know more about coaching. But I hit this point and I'm like, everything I used to do, I'm getting too old to do any of it anymore. I can't play football. I can't wrestle. I can't do all these things. Like I need a hobby.
Golf.
So then one of our guys who coached football is like, well, we have an opening for like a freshman golf coach. And I'm like, absolutely. So, and it was a lot of fun. And now I've really picked up the game and play a lot and really enjoy that in the summer.
Are you coaching it all here, or are you just?
I'm
hands
not.
off
As
with
part of this role, I know Luke McLean, the former AD, did it, but hats off to him to try and be a head coach and do this role and do it well is a challenge. There's just a lot that goes into it.
And so playing sports, what's your favorite to play?
I played football in college, and I think just getting that extra 4 years made it to where I don't dream about playing football anymore. I don't dream that way. I wrestled through high school. That was kind of the sport I was a little bit better at. But by the time I was done in high school, I was done. But now I still wish, like, man, I wish I could, be in that shape again and just snap my fingers and, be in wrestling shape. But I absolutely loved wrestling. I enjoyed it. The fact that it was a team sport, but also it didn't matter. Like, everyone else could lose and you can still win. Mm-hmm. Like that individual thing. And I think that's such a good life skill for people to learn of. You lose, you have no one else to blame. Yeah. Like, there's no one you can put it on. But yet there's still a team element, which I really appreciate that about the A&ML group of Coach Young's really puts an element on, like, we're a team first. And individually you contribute to that group. So
it's pretty cool. The fact that you're from Iowa and wrestled in high school shouldn't be very surprising at all.
No surprise at all.
Yeah, right. Well, we don't have hockey there.
I was going to say, you don't have a whole lot to do out there, especially if you're coming from a town that's an hour and a half from a Target.
Yeah, if you don't hunt and fish, you were going to struggle growing up. Yeah, and I kind of compare it to, like, if Minnesota didn't have hockey. Like, Iowa has no high school hockey. No, I think there's one college. It's getting a little more prominent in Des Moines now that the Wild have their development team there. But still, Minnesota has really good wrestling. It's kind of surprising how many high-level Division I kids come out of Minnesota. But now if you take away hockey, and a lot of those kids would probably wrestle, you'd have some pretty high-end talent here too. So
your start here in Annandale is 80. What have been the biggest challenges?
A lot like everyone. It's just everyone's really busy, but finding people to help. It takes, I think I counted the other day, it takes 14 people to have a varsity football game. Wow. And the amount of people that it takes to help. And you look at a basketball game, it takes 6 or 7 people for every basketball game, and that's not even including officials. It just takes a lot of people to make this whole thing work. But we have great support here. We have lots of people that are willing to help, but always looking to grow that group so it's not the same people kind of getting burnt out. So that's the biggest probably struggle is continuing to have people that are willing to work and help out, but also people are busy. Like, there's a lot going on. But I just look back at, like, all the people that worked games for me, as a kid, and ultimately, like, they probably had things to do too, and they had things that they could have been at or things that they could have been doing or hobbies. But ultimately just continuing to build that stable. So that way, if everyone's taking a couple games, it's not just one person that's at 20, it's, 4 or 5 people taking 4 or 5 games. So it's not so much of I don't want to say burden, but it's not so much of a commitment.
Well, I feel like we've gotten a really good thing in Annandale, and the fact that we have the CAF, Cardinal Athletic Foundation, right? So it's our biggest booster that we have, that they contribute unbelievable amount of time, effort, and money that helps a program build a culture, right? So we have some sports that have unbelievable culture around them. The cross-country team, for example. When I was in high school, cross-country was there, but that was about it. It was there. Now they have unbelievable success and numbers that I don't think anybody around us has and we've never seen before. Same thing with football. Football, when I was in high school, it was there. It was fun. People went to the games, but we didn't have, like, a winning type of a culture behind us where kids were excited to get up and get into the sport. And you've done some things that I appreciate, which is like naming our stadium and our gym and things like that, which I don't think that was really thought of before. I think it's more of a big city mentality to have that, but it's cool to see those things. So what made you think of them, and how'd you come up with the names?
Yeah, well, I think going back to the Cardinal Athletic Foundation, what a cool group to have, and the fact that started kind of a grassroots organization, from what I understand, many years ago when they saw a need and they filled it. And that's what it takes in a small town, like people just stepping up to fill needs. And that's really cool to see in the amount of people that, as I've been doing some of these projects, that are like, oh yeah, I'll help you out. Like, I'll just come do it. Like, a perfect example was the speakers were blown at the stadium, whether it was due to rain or whatever. And all of a sudden,
or the fact that they're 25 years old.
The ones we have now are pretty nice.
No, I meant the previous ones.
Oh, the previous ones. Yeah, the bells. Yeah, those are no longer on the property. So, but like all of a sudden, like a Wayne Jacobson, he's like, hey, I'll just drop off my lift and you can use it, and away we'll go. And he even took down the old ones while he was there so we could repair them. And then a Jeremy Wheeler who has the knowledge, and he's like, yeah, I'll repair them. And And so like that's the really cool part of a small town, and Cache just a microcosm of that. If people are just they're willing to help, they're willing to step up. I think a lot of the marketing branding stuff is just trying to create a common brand for Annandale and things that I think people associate with that. There's a lot of things about like imagery and being in a place that looks nice and how that makes you feel as a student, and also from a community pride standpoint. So just trying to come up with some of those things, and then just getting creative in how we can accomplish it. And that's where working with Josh Laney out at Laney Graphics has been unbelievable, and someone who also went to the school and cares about it. And so he's been able to help us out a lot in accomplishing that vision. So, and it all comes back to having great coaches. Like you hit on the idea of like program building and building excitement and numbers, and the hours that Michelle McElena and Matt Walter and Scott Mossman have put in to build those cultures and to build them into something that like you can't even comprehend the amount of hours that go in even outside of the season. And then all the way going down to youth coaches, like having dads and moms that are willing to step up and coach a 5th grade team and coach an AYBA team. Like I said, we all have things where it's like, boy, I wish I could be out ice fishing. But you know what? We make the time commitment. We decide like, you know what? I'm gonna coach this team for this season, and it's gonna be a great experience, and kids are gonna love it. And then they come back the next year. So I think in the Wright County Conference, our participation numbers just blow everyone away, which I think is just a testament to not just CAF, but the youth associations, the parents, the people that are willing to get involved. Yes, would I love to have more workers and more helpers and more everything? I mean, always, but we've never had to cancel a game. We've never had to move a game. We've always in the end come up with what we need, which you can't say that looking even around our own conference as far as, we had a school literally have to like move a time game because they didn't have a bus, and
Oh, wow.
we're so fortunate to have M&M right across the street where it's like, hey guys, we need to move this and move that. And they're so awesome to work with and willing to be flexible with us. And so, yeah, just talk about another advantage to have your bus company is connected to the town, and B is literally right across the street. Like I can't tell you how many times that they've saved our butts when we were in a pinch. So
I hear you. To touch on a couple of quick points for names that you have mentioned, Wayne Jacobson, for example, is probably the most passionate person, period. And if it comes to sports, it's like a whole nother level, to the point to where he does all the field maintenance in the summertime for the youth baseball and softball leagues. And I've subbed for him in the past when they went to go take vacation. I'm like, yeah, I can do that for you. Holy buckets. He is so underappreciated, and the amount of work that goes into what he does. And he's got the kids out there doing it. He'll do one part, and another kid will be on the four-wheeler measuring out the bases, whatever. So huge shout out to Wayne Jacobson. I know your wife will be watching this, Gina. I don't know if Wayne does or not, but we all appreciate what you do. And the coaching for youth sports. I coach myself for many years. I'm kind of a hiatus where my kids' ages, because I have kids that have gone all the way through the program, got one who's still in it, and one who's about to start. Matthew hasn't gotten to that point yet. His daughter's only 2, so he's got a little bit of time still. Hopefully you step into one of those positions for coaching, because it's always needed. But I'll be probably this year or next year, probably start coaching again. But it's fun being on this side of it, where I see other parents who have a utter and complete passion for taking what they know and passing it on to the next generation, and hopefully get that excitement going and keep it going, so that by the time you get to see them, they're already in it. And I think that's huge, and our community is great with that.
Some of the change you mentioned, a couple of the changes, getting speakers and stuff. What so far in your time, what have been the changes you made?
Yeah, there's so much that was going right already. Taking over for Luke McLean, who did just an excellent job here in navigating through. I always did being an educational leader through COVID. I couldn't imagine. And I just watched like our principal at Wayzata go through some of that and some of the fire you took, and you weren't going to be right no matter what you did. Like you were gonna struggle through it. So him navigating through that. A couple of the things that have happened so far. A lot of them are more what I would say is like organizational. We already have an excellent culture here. It's been long established by coaches that have been here for a long time. You look at some of the tenures of coaches we have here, and we might have some of the longest tenured coaches in the whole conference, and they do an excellent job. Some of the stuff that we've accomplished is new gym speakers that were badly needed. Thank goodness Jeremy Wheeler was willing to like put his speakers in there, but now he's like, oh man, now I can set up in 10 minutes where I used to have to come an hour early. for someone that volunteers.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome, and we can use them even for like PE classes, and like our PE teachers can be mic'd up and talking, so they don't have to yell so loud. So that's been a huge upgrade. Small things like the state championship banners going up, the cardinal at the middle of the football field. So just some small things that way. There's some bigger things for next year that will be coming out soon that I think will be pretty awesome for the kids and creating a great experience for them. Because ultimately, like that's where you rest your head at night is did I make an experience better for kids? Would I want my kids to have this experience? And so, doing that for everyone else's.
Absolutely.
And fun fact for you on the cardinal in the middle of the field. I didn't know it myself, and many people I talked to, I never realized we never had a cardinal on the field before.
Yeah, when he told me that too.
And then I also said, did you also not know that we never had hash marks either? Because I believe when you started doing the hash marks, we didn't have them prior to, for many years, if ever.
Yeah, and it's just small things like that. Then our fields were in great shape even when I came here. Rick Wahlberg did a great job of managing all that. It's just adding these little things and working with Rich Christensen and the fact that he can kind of just focus on grounds, and he does an excellent job with that. So the fields are in great shape, and it's just adding a few things to them to make it a special experience for kids. So like I said, I don't, it doesn't really impact me of what the field looks like, but if those kids walk out and they're like, man, this is awesome. Like, what a cool experience for the kids and parents. That's it. So,
and I'll throw a picture of the field with the cardinal on it when I edit this.
and so what we did is we backed an overhead projector up across the gym and actually hung it from the baseball cages and lifted up it's actually a hockey liner is what that is.
Okay.
For a hockey arena. And we got it to the point, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's big enough, is what Matt and Jeff said. And I go, that's the size of the one that it is currently. So like when it's inside, it looks massive.
Yeah.
And what we actually did, so that cardinal actually would take up the whole wall of that batting cage wall in the gym.
Oh my goodness.
But then you take it outside and you're like, oh, this is about perfect.
Well, it's funny because I seen Rich just as they're finishing up the second one, and he had red paint all over his boots and his pants and everything else. And he comes to me, he's like, Rick, I hope this one's big enough for you. I'm like, I'm looking forward to seeing it, because he said he spent some time on getting it out there, getting it done right, and it looked fantastic.
Yeah, it was awesome and a cool, and the fact of like the amount of kids that came in and said, how awesome it was, and it's like, and we came out and spanked Princeton on it, which was even better. So,
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
You mentioned McLean as previous ED. Have you talked with the other previous ones at all?
I've actually met a lot of them. There was one day I was sitting in my office. It was like a Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden there was like a knock on the window, and I'm like, what in the world? Guy on a bicycle, and he's like signaling for me to let him in. I'm like, okay. It is Ron Starkey. He came by. So I've met Ron. I actually rode in the golf cart at the cross country meet with Denny Harmoning. So I've met and talked with both of them. Denny I've actually talked to a little bit. He has the same spot he stands on the fence to watch the football games. And I remember Newland and Spicer in the pouring rain this year. He stayed until maybe a minute left, before. So it was fun to just sit there and pick his brain and hear some of the history. But those are the main two that I've had a chance to talk to, and then
pick their brain a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And then in the CAF tournament, I actually golfed with Steve Nicholas. So that was kind of fun to hear some of his older stories. So
yeah, I'm sure he's got some stories. He was in the school district for quite a number of years. Good guy, though. Good guy.
The coming steps, you're holding tight on those ones?
No, it's pretty public knowledge. Lord willing, everything works out. We should have a new football scoreboard next year that I think will be a nice upgrade for our kids and just for the stadium in general. And then also looking at adding a LED scorers table for basketball. We need more space for shot clock operator. Also looking to move Jeremy Wheelertown out of the stands, and there's more room in the stands behind him anyway. So
speaking of that, that's going to be a pretty big change for high school basketball. There's going to be a shot clock now. What is the shot clock time? Is it be 40 seconds or
35.
35? Okay.
Yep. And we actually played a girls game with it, and it was good. And our boys have played a few non-conference games with it. The reason we couldn't put it in as a conference is it had to be a unanimous vote this year if your conference was going to use it, and we didn't have a unanimous vote. But then next year you have to use it.
Say Minnesota State High School League required all conferences next year have to
next
adopt
year.
it.
Next year it'll be full-blown section play, everything else. So
I think it'll be good though. I think there's some teams that I remember playing against that would sit on the ball for 2-3 minutes.
Yep.
And we probably were guilty of it a couple of times too. Maybe
Gotta burn that clock.
But I think it'll just help speed up the game and make it a little bit more interesting. Come down to the end of the game because you can't sit on a ball anymore.
Yeah.
When it comes to all the different sports, is there any sports that are needing some help versus the ones that are really taking off?
You look at us across the board, and I think that's where Annandale's so impressive. Like, we rarely will have a team under 500 at all. And like, just think about how rare that is in every single sport. So, we have some really great coaches and great programs. I think that I think they're all in really good places right now.
And participation numbers is
numbers are great. Numbers are great. The one that was a little low was gymnastics, but man, Gracie Elson Peter and Kelsey Coffey, like, my goodness, did they do a great job this year as first year coaches. Kelsey was an assistant coach in the past, but I think was much more involved in the overall program this year, and they have some great plans for summer stuff and youth and getting younger kids involved. So that way, as great as it is to have Maple Lakes facility right down the road, like, we want them training here with us and with our coaches and getting to build those relationships. So that's one I'm real excited about, and I think is going to be a big one moving forward, is that gymnastics piece. Sarah Onstead with cheer, my goodness, the amount of time that they've put in to build that program and finished with a 4th in state finish in their first year competing this year. That's another one that's building and coming. And boy, I don't know if they had 30 or 40 girls for competition cheer this year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they did a great job. The biggest thing, we need to find people spaces. I think Sarah practiced in about 4 different spots this year, just depending on what was open, including the cafeteria, which it works and they make it work. And you'll never hear them say anything different, but trying to get people spaces. We're bursting at the seams with some of our programs and needing some different things for them, like a standalone gymnastics facility would be fantastic. Right now we put a ton of time into setting up and tearing down our current one. We make it work, but that's kind of hopefully the next thing is adding some spaces.
And tournaments. I mean, now it seems like except football, but I mean, there's tournaments all the time right now.
Yeah, if you look at our facility calendar, those gyms are full from 6 a.m. to about 9 p.m. every single night, between JO volleyball and even like pickleball, and the community's in there as much as they can be and as much as we have space for them. So yeah, we fill them. They're used, and that's what they're there for. They're there to be used and to provide spaces for the community and for the kids. But they are filled.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing how many people those bring to town. I mean, it's just you go into any of the restaurants around lunchtime if there's a tournament going on, and yeah, it's packed.
Yeah, they talk about in the summer of I think they hosted 4 baseball tournaments last year, and just how full it was when they were here, and the revenue that brings in. I know that the Baseball and Softball Association did really well running those tournaments, and there's really not as many places around that are willing to host the big tournaments or at the facilities.
Well, and that part's good to hear too, because I know there was a lot of concern and pushback when it came to do we or don't we build a rec park. Right. Is there going to be enough attendance to make it pay off? And I think it speaks for itself that definitely pays off. And there's teams from all over the state coming, and they come and they see what we as a community have to offer. And I've been to tournaments in other cities and other towns and stuff, and you'll hear every now and again, oh, you're from Annandale. Oh, yeah, that's where, well, you guys have an awesome facility there. And it makes you have a sense of pride in your own community for the fact that they can remember just what our fields were like.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the front door into the community. A lot of our activities venues are, and so that's a big piece of it. And then also, the more you can bring people in from outside, that's people that see the town, they shop in the town, they come back for the 4th of celebration, they go downtown and shop, and it's kind of a different world today where people are always looking, they're always like it's more of a regional thing than it is a town thing anymore. And especially the more people start looking at being outside of the metro. That's my wife and our story of wanting to come to a small town. So I think you're always marketing yourselves. I think you're always marketing your town, your community, and the high school is just one way to do that.
Fair enough. And you mentioned that that's part of the reason why you and your wife wanted to come to our community. Talk me through a little bit of that process of how did you choose to conclude your tenure at Wayzata and come out here?
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of reputation matters. My principal at Wayzata, Scott Gangler, was at Watertown many years ago, and it was a crazy spring. Ended up kind of juggling a few different positions. And he kind of sat me down, and this is very anti his style, but he sits down and goes, "If you get offered the spot at Annandale, that's where you go." And I'm like, okay. And so like that whole reputation of Annandale in the Wright County too.
So had you been here prior to finding the position was open?
I had not. Nope. I had never been to Annandale. I can't say I really knew a whole lot of people out here. I graduated college with a girl from Annandale, but had never been out here. So
once you found out the position was open, I'm assuming you took a trip or two out here to come check it out?
Yes. Yeah.
What was your first impression? I'm assuming good.
Great. Once I turned down Oak Street, I was like, yep, this is it. Like, and just seeing the awnings and the shops and just everything's very clean. Like, it's a very clean community. People take care of it. Like, and you can just tell. It's hard to put your thumb on it. And then seeing City Park was awesome. And just meeting everybody. I mean, people were so nice, and we came out for the 4th of July thing, and I had tons of people that were like, "Oh yeah, I saw the article in the paper," and I'm like, "Man, it is like being home. It's awesome."
Awesome.
So
that's good. It's one thing that's pretty fun. I mean, you've mentioned. I mean, we've got a really solid sports program here in Annandale. One thing that's really fun is, so at our dealership, whenever the teams are going to state or conferences or sections, and they drive through with the fire truck and the police and all the.
Actually, they did that this morning. We'll be airing this one long after wrestling is over, but they had the parade going out of town for the wrestlers this morning.
And I think that is, when it comes to your community getting behind it, it's just super exciting. We always us and Lundeen's next door, we'll get as many people as we can, start hopping in cars and hitting the alarm buttons and stuff when they're going by and honking horns and flashing lights, and all the kids are waving. And yeah, they do the ride through town, and I mean, it's just fun how much this community, just everybody gets behind it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I saw that was so great was the way we do homecoming, and the fact that we'll actually have like a pet fest at the elementary school led by like the kids.
Yeah.
And, it's just really good to ground some of the high school kids in like, man, you could never even see the field or the court, but man, to this kindergartner, you are royalty. And I think just that giving it back, right, and setting that table of you're now leaders. Like you're a high school athlete. You're now a leader in the community. And so that was a really cool activity to see. John Klipnis at the elementary runs just a really cool program.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ever able to make it to the elementary pet fest during homecoming and seeing the excitement on those little kids' face and how cool like they think it all is, it's worth it.
Yeah,
man, it'll fill your tank.
A parade of athletes down the hallway.
Yeah.
And everyone's giving fives on the way by, which when you're in elementary school, that's like a big deal.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Oh, get to give a high five.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
What do you have in mind for? I don't want to go as far as say world domination, because I think that'd be a little bit inaccurate. But moving forward, like what are your goals and aspirations on what you want to continue to either work on or things that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think it's just continuing to pour into the kids. I mean, that's ultimately like we're all just teachers, and we're all you view them as your own kids. Working on trying to put in some more concrete things as far as like things I can lead for leadership development and service learning and things along those lines. We started a group called Captain Class, not based on captains, based on a book called Captain Class, that basically analyzed some of the greatest teams ever for each sport. And then also like, okay, who was the linchpin? Like, who was the person? Maybe not the loudest, maybe not the person that was in the media the most, but who seemed to be the cog that's the reason they won? Perfect example is for baseball, they came up with like the 1950s Yankees. Like, that's the greatest dynasty that's ever existed is what they came up with. And then But you think about some of the great players that are on that team, they'd all came back to what they said was Yogi Berra, catcher. And what one of the statistics they used to support that was every pitcher that he ever had their lowest ERA with him. And so then they analyzed, like, well, what was he like, and how did he act, and how did he work with the media, and how was he in public? And so that kind of was the premise behind starting this class. So now we meet every other week. It's open to anyone within the school that really just wants to focus on getting better themselves and becoming better leaders. So we've been working through the CARDS acronym right now: commitment, accountability, respect, discipline, service. And so that's kind of the stuff that I want to keep working on and developing and fleshing out, and hopefully work it into guest speakers someday and making it a little bit more of a robust program that way. Just to help pour into kids that want to get better, because a lot of our kids want to learn, they want to get better, they want to grow. So it's just continuing to provide those opportunities.
Nice. That's really cool to hear that you guys are putting the time and effort into bettering the youth to better themselves.
Yeah.
Was the 90s Bulls in that book?
For basketball, they had the Celtics, the Bill Russell Celtics, and then they analyzed how Bill Russell was, and he actually took 1 year. I think he won the MVP, but they didn't win the NBA Finals, and he threw that MVP trophy away. And someone actually had to went in the garbage and grab it. Cause I don't care, we didn't win the title, so obviously I'm not the most valuable. But just that mentality above and beyond mentality of it's about the team and the group winning. For hockey, they talked about the Soviet group that lost to the Americans, but yes, they lost that game. But over that decade plus, that's the most dominant hockey group in the history of hockey. And one of the captains, they talked about that plane ride home after they lost, and just the way that the coaches were kind of blaming players, and it was a little bit of a rocky situation in this. I would butcher his name, so I'm not even going to try. But he basically told the coaches, "We'll be at practice tomorrow. Do not show up if you view us as disappointments. We're going to be here to get better, so that way that doesn't happen again. But if you're not bought in, don't come." So it's just kind of that ownership and leadership of, some of your best teams. Tim Tebow's book about his time at Florida was unbelievable. The first year that he was starting, he's like, that was the most talented team we ever had. And I think they went 10-2.
Well, you look at the roster that they had on that team.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Well, in the year they didn't win it is when he makes the argument of we were even better, but it was all coach led. And he goes, the year that we won it, no offense to Urban Meyer and the coaching staff, he goes, we didn't need coaches. We were
They
all
had a full-fledged NFL team.
They yeah,
right.
Almost everybody on that team went on to just dominate.
Yeah, not just that they went to the NFL. Every one of them was all-pro.
Yeah.
It was insane how talented that team was.
Right, but he talks about they were 100% self-led, and it was the players leading it, and it wasn't a coach saying, hey, we need to come in at 6 to do this passing league. It was, no, we're all just showing up, and if you're not
the
there,
team themselves had a great culture amongst themselves.
So,
all right, well, Sam, it's been great having you on here. We appreciate all the insight you've given us, and congrats on the job, and can't hope anything but the best for the coming years, and you've got a good thing going so far, and you're passionate, and it's exciting. So,
yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great place to be. I hope people realize just how fortunate we are to be in a community like this, and reminded every day by the people we meet and the interactions we have. So,
sounds good. Again, appreciate it. Anybody else have anybody they'd like to see on our episodes of Laketown Podcast? Certainly reach out via Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Send an email to laketownpodcast@gmail.com. If you have anybody else, let me know. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
see ya.